Alright YouTube, today we're working on the backhoe again. Right now we have absolutely no brakes. If you detach the pedals, one goes straight to the floor and then the other one has a little resistance. We looked under and one of our master cylinders is completely broken and we don't think the other one's working too well.
You'll need to remove the left side hood panel. Our tractor conveniently is missing both. We grabbed an old Gatorade bottle and started trying to pull these hoses off. When you do so, they will leak brake fluid, so you want to try your best to catch that.
You sure about that?
Definitely not sure.
Oh, Gatorade bottle. What? No, we're taking it out. Oh, got the other one.
Now we grabbed a ratchet and started breaking the banjo bolts on the top of the brake master cylinders loose. These banjo bolts were pretty tough. We tried a couple different ratchets before we figured out what kind of worked. Now finish pulling out those two banjo bolts. It's probably best here to wear gloves instead of using a paper towel. On the opposite side of your brake master cylinders are the physical pedals, a left and a right for the two separate brakes. Each pedal has a little push-on cotter pin that you need to slide backwards in order to pull the pin out.
Is that one broken and not? Oh, it's still connected. It's just broken in the middle.
Once the pin's removed, I grab a screwdriver, push the pin out backwards. This particular side falls off because the hardware that holds it together is broken, but that shouldn't happen on yours. The replacement master cylinders that we bought come with like an all-in-one pin. You just kind of slide it through the hole and then spin it 90 degrees and it locks in on the shaft. Now that our two pins are free, all we got to do is remove these 4 bolts and our master cylinders are free. Once you pull the master cylinders out, the next step is to remove these old fittings from the hoses. This is the full old master cylinder assembly minus the one push rod on the far side. There's also 2 more banjo bolts on the bottom and a little U that connects them. Here we have it in the workshop and we're just taking that apart so that we can transfer that over to the new pair of master cylinders. We take it back to the machine and throw it back through the holes. I'm on the other side with the bolts so that I can try to put it on when he sticks it through.
Oh, there we go.
We connected these hoses and tried to put the factory clips back on, and we struggled for a while and finally gave up and just used zip ties instead. They didn't leak, so it seemed to work okay. Then we flipped over to the brake side, trying to get all 4 of these bolts and the 2 pins all lined up. Proved to be quite a pain. I ended up putting the pins on, starting the bolts, and then taking the pins back off and putting the bolts in almost all the way, then putting the pins back in, and then, kind of final tightening the bolts the rest of the way. I did use a screwdriver as a pry bar to push the brake down in order to help line the pin up. That seemed to be the most effective approach. It took at least a half hour to get them in there. Do a final tighten on those bolts once the pins are in, and you're good to go on this side. Back on the far side, you can see the zip ties in place of the little clamps that used to be there, and just reassembling these banjo bolts. And then hand tightening them all the way in. We came back off camera and gave all these a final torque. We also come back later and cut the tags off those zip ties. Here's the brake oil that the manual called for. We grabbed 2 quarts. The reservoir holds right about a quart, so we wanted to have some spare. The brake oil reservoir is located on the right hand side beneath the steering wheel. It should have a little door that covers it up, but again, for convenience, ours is missing. The 2 brake bleeders on the machine are located on the top of the rear axle on the left and the right side. According to the service manual, you crack open the bleeders and you're supposed to just let it gravity feed, keep the reservoir full. We tried that for a couple hours, still had no brakes, so we grabbed a vacuum bleeder, standard like you use for a car, and started sucking the fluid through until we got pretty solid flow. And then we went ahead and gave them a pump just like regular automotive brakes. To do this, you'll need a second person to sit in the driver's seat and pump the brake lever probably 5 to 10 times, and then hold the brake lever down while the second person cracks open the bleeder valve, sucks out the air, and then closes the bleeder valve. And then you just sit there and repeat that process. We slowly built pressure and sucked the air out of the hose, and then we were able to get some volcano spurts here and get the rest of the air out.
Alright, I'm getting the shot. Oh, we're doing the right still. Let's do the right 2 more and then go to the left. So you're closed? Bro, with the left one all the way down, you can't move the right one. It's physically locked. Oh, they're so firm. Bro, this is great. Alright. We'll try bleeding the right one individually, because I can't do it both. So right one's pressed.
It took a solid half hour, maybe 45 minutes of bleeding to get all the air out.
Oh yeah, so apparently we just need to fuck with it longer.
We used a combination of single pedal bleeding as well as holding down one pedal and then bleeding the other. That little bypass on the bottom I think is the culprit.
Yeah, the bypass must have air in it.
We drove it back and forth slowly for a couple minutes and worked the remaining air out of the brakes. He was complaining that occasionally one of the pedals would blow all the way through, but by the time he got around to showing it to me, it never really happened again, and they slowly built up to solid pressure. That's all for today's episode. We'll see you again soon, next time our backhoe breaks.